doesn't matter if you're four-wheeling across the backcountry in a super advanced all-terrain vehicle or just driving to the local market in your compact sedan, all these tips and pointers apply to anybody just to make sure that you have a comfortable and safe winter in your car. These tips come from multiple sources, my own experience from others. When I was part of a maintenance group in the Army, we did regular checks on all vehicles. There was also this weird maintenance comic book that the Army put out that was kind of silly in its delivery, but had absolute gold as far as info is concerned. And every winter they had a segment on what to do to prepare for the cold that had some really great tips, so I thought I'd pass that on to you on how to keep your vehicle in the best shape for winter. We'll start with gear that you should always keep in your car. It's always good to be prepared, and I believe every car should have an emergency car kit. But when winter comes, things get cold and there are some things you must carry with you. Not everybody's going to carry a 72-hour kit or full extraction gear. But even if you're driving on paved roads just to work and back every day, please have this stuff for winter. Starting a car is most difficult in the cold, so always carry a set of jumper cables. And if possible, also maybe a jump starter battery. They're helpful if you don't have any cars around you, but if you're in town, there's likely to be somebody somewhere that can help you out. Be familiar with the process of jump starting a car. Not only will it save you if your engine won't start, but now you can help office workers when their car dies. Here's the quick version of jump starting. First off, always leave the good car running so you don't end up with two dead batteries. Start by putting the red connector onto the positive terminal of the good car. Next, the positive terminal on the bad car. Next, the negative terminal on the good car. And lastly, the negative terminal on the bad car, either on the terminal of the battery, or if it's an unsealed battery if it has the caps on it, it's good to do it away from the battery just in case there's a little bit of hydrogen in the air. You don't want the spark to ignite anything. So a good ground point if you can find one, but doing it just on the terminals can get away in a pinch. Just be very careful that it's a well-vented area. Then let the good engine run for about 1 to 3 minutes to warm up the dead battery. Never run the starter longer than 30 seconds when you're trying to start it up. And if you do this 3 times, the whole process, you let it run for a few minutes and it warms up, and you can't do it after 3 times, you may have a larger problem, so call a tow truck. Next, carry a blanket. They're good for picnics if nothing bad ever happens, and I've also used mine to take naps when I was in college between classes. But in winter, the more available warmth you have, the better in an emergency. If you break down, the car provides good shelter from the elements, but you're still going to need to bundle up against the cold. Chances are you have a cheap spare blanket lying around that you can toss in the trunk, and if not, these things go for less than $20. Next, make sure you have an ice scraper. If you just need to brush off the snow, you can get away with using your sleeve, but scraper is the only way where you're going to get the ice off the windows. You only have to scrape the ice off your windshield once with a credit card to never going without an ice scraper again. Like the blanket, this is a cheap purchase that really goes a long way in winter. Lastly, I like to keep a separate pair of gloves and a hat in the car just in case you forget your own or you need to lend them to a friend. Like the blanket, it's an extra layer of warmth in an emergency, and most likely you're just going to forget your hat and your gloves, and you're going to want to make sure you have a pair on you. There are many other emergency items that would be great to carry, but that's a subject for a different video. These are just some things that everybody should do. They cost little to nothing, and it's a great thing to do right now before the winter hits. Batteries get weaker in the cold, so battery maintenance is top priority. Even when full, they only have about 50% of the output at freezing, as they do at 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So you're going to want to maximize the power output as much as you can. If they are non-sealed batteries, top off the cells with distilled water. You need to bring the electrolyte up to the bottom of the plastic filler hole. Also, don't splash any of it on you or it'll eat holes in your clothes. Clean battery terminals and clamps to get rid of any corrosion. Use baking soda dissolved in water to neutralize the acid. Put a pair of felt spacers on the battery. They aren't as much for corrosion as they are to create a small air gap between the terminal clamps and the case of the battery. If the battery is dirty or wet, it can cause a high resistance short that will slowly drain the battery. When you're done cleaning, tighten down the clamps for a good solid metal-to-metal contact and smear a thin layer of white lithium grease on the exposed metal of the terminals to help hold off corrosion. Clean and dry your air filters. Damp filters can freeze and ice will restrict airflow. Humid areas obviously have to worry about this a bit more than the rest of us. Make sure the antifreeze mixture is a ratio of 50-50 distilled water to antifreeze. Some antifreeze comes pre-mixed, so check the bottle. If your coolant never comes up to temperature, have your thermostat replaced. Also check your coolant hoses that they're not puffy, hard and cracked, mushy or wet. They should be firm, but you can still squeeze them. Also check your oil levels and consider doing a full oil change with synthetic 5W30 or 10W30 oil. When checking, make sure there are no water droplets on the dipstick that would indicate internal leaks. Check all over the engine for any leaks of any kind, because now's the time to take care of them. Top off your windshield washer fluid. Make sure the washer fluid that you got won't freeze in the cold winter temperatures. Water in your fuel lines can freeze. Today's ethanol gas helps prevent water forming in the gas tank, but if your car has been sitting half empty for a long time, consider adding a dry gas additive. Check your tire pressures. Cold air is denser, so cold tires will have a lower PSI, which leads to more sidewall flex while driving. So always check the tire pressure after the outdoor temperature gets dramatically colder. Go to the car wash before the temperature gets below freezing so that the water from the car wash doesn't freeze onto your car. And clean the dirt and mud from the vehicle, especially the wheels and the drivetrain. Frozen clumps of mud stuck to the vehicle can unbalance those moving parts. Clean loose junk out of the car that may come loose and roll under the gas or brake pedals. Also clear the footwells inside the vehicle so that the heat coming out of the heater doesn't damage anything too close to them. Plus, the better airflow will help warm the car quicker. Be aware that many vehicles today have vents under the seats for the rear passengers. When you first start your engine on a cold morning, give it a minute just to idle and warm up and circulate that thick cold oil to help reduce wear on the engine. If you do slip on the snow, remember to hold down ABS brakes. Pump non-ABS brakes. It's good to test slippery driving in an empty parking lot the first big snow day of the year. Cold, dry air makes static buildup more likely, so make sure to ground yourself on some bare metal before filling your gas tank to avoid any sparks. And that's it. 1 hour out of your afternoon and you'll be much better prepared for what winter has to throw at you.